Zadie Bees proudly presents the Faith, Fashion, and the Hustle podcast, hosted by the founder of Zadie Bees, Sonia Bryant.
Hello everybody, this is Dallas Bryant, and I am interviewing today Sonia Bryant, the founder and CEO, amongst many other hats, of Zadie Bees Fashions. So we want to ask you to join us on this journey as we begin to kind of explore the history and the process that she's been through and all the factors that led up to where she is today. So we're excited for you to join us. Welcome. It's good to have you here today.
Hi, Dallas. Thank you. I'm excited about this podcast. I've been looking forward to this for a while.
So we're going to kind of ask you just to kind of give us a bird's eye view, you as a pastor's wife, having had many other jobs throughout your history. So just kind of give us, if you would, a little insight into Sonia Bryant before we get into Zadie Bees, a little insight into you as a person and kind of the person that was desired to even create this business.
Well, there's many years to cover here, Dallas, so I'm going to try to make this as simple as possible, but give you some little background or a lot of background maybe. We'll just see how this goes. But as a young girl, we moved from Mississippi to New Mexico. We lived in New Mexico for a year with my mom and my two older sisters, and it began, this is back in the 60s and late 60s, early 70s. Mom was a seamstress.
We're going to act like we didn't hear that. That you were not that old.
We don't want to give all the secrets away here. But anyway, we moved to New Mexico, and in my in my long years, we lived in New Mexico for 1 year. My mom's family lived there, and we moved to Stockton, California. And shortly after we went to Stockton, Mom became the head cook back then it was WABC, and it's now CLC. So that does date me a little bit. But anyway, Mom, she had to make my sister's clothes. I was younger, so I think things were a little easier to find for me as a child. But girls in the 70s had a really hard time finding modest clothes. So Mom sewed a lot for my sisters. And so I remember, and for me, but more them, because it was harder on them because they were teenagers. But so we would lay out patterns, and I was a part of this too. My mom would lay out patterns and pick out multiple things. I want the sleeve off of this, and the neckline off of this, and the hemline off of this, and oh man, look at the sleeve on this. Let's put the sleeve on this. So it was really fun, and so kind of got in my blood, and I didn't even realize till many years later. It was really, really, really probably the beginnings of my designing in my head. And people laugh at me. I told someone just recently, I can see a lady walk across the church and go, oh, I love that skirt. Oh, it'd be cute if I added this or took this away, or even a blouse or a dress.
So you say that you were a fashion designer, or at least very interested in fashion as a little girl. So that kind of formed in you early.
Yes, I was. Yes, it started really young, and I guess just always been ingrained in me. I didn't even realize it, and I just love clothes, and I love pretty things.
Now, I can't remember, did you end up designing your bridesmaids dresses? Was that something that y'all did as well?
You know what? Actually, yeah, we did. We actually did. I hadn't even thought about that, Dallas. You're right, though. We did the same thing. We took different pieces of patterns and mixed and matched them together. I hadn't even thought about that. You're right.
So, and of course, which I would have called her Mamaw, and her, Carol Hodges, Sonia Bryant's mom, she obviously was a influence there as well.
Oh, absolutely. She was huge.
She was just a get-her-done kind of gal.
She was. She really was. But things evolved. We stayed in Stockton for 5 years. My mom wound up being a cook for multiple Bible colleges. We moved to Conquerors Bible College in Portland, Oregon, and in 1976 stayed there for 5 years, moved to Apostolic Bible Institute in St. Paul. And so I have met so many people along the way, missionaries and ministry all around the country. So it's really fun to go to conferences and run into people I knew growing up. But I graduated from high school in Portland, Oregon at 16. So I went full-time working as a dental assistant and did that for 10 years.
that's a little bit of a far cry from ladies' fashion.
Yeah. But it was it was a good experience. I actually, after your dad and I got married in 1984, I switched over when you were a little baby, switched to the medical field, and if I'd have known how much I enjoyed the medical field, I probably would have done that in my young years. But anyway, did that for some years until we moved to Mississippi, and then ZDB's evolved after that, after we moved to Mississippi.
Well, so everybody knows now the name ZDB's. Most of our
I hope so.
friends and family, and obviously, following across the landscape and ladies all over the country. And as missionaries and people across overseas too. Thank God for that.
That's awesome.
But it wasn't always ZDB's.
No.
So kind of go back into the history of where this started and give us a little scrappy startup story.
Oh wow,
this gets interesting.
Yeah, this was really fun. So I worked in the medical field for some years after we moved to. Actually, before we left Arizona, my husband pastored in Sierra Vista, and I worked in the medical field and got acquainted and learned the medical field in Arizona. And we moved here, and I went back into the medical field after we got here.
When you say moved here, just so people can understand where we are.
Mississippi.
Yes.
The deep South. No, we actually, my husband was voted in as pastor in Kent, Mississippi in 1995. We came here and moved us and our 3 little boys all across the country, brought us to green Mississippi. And so in the 1995 is when we came here, and then I went back into the medical field, probably the latter part of 96 probably, worked in that field for a few years. And then I had a next door neighbor who asked me to work for her. She was a mortgage broker. She said, why don't you come work for me? And I said, might give it a try, something different, which I did love the medical field. But so I tried that out for a little while. And so funny story about how it was classic elections back then, Dallas. And I'll tell you a little history about that. But so in 1998, my sister, Dwylene Allen, she went to ladies' conference here in Mississippi, and she calls me after ladies' conference. She said, those micropleats that we love so much? I had been buying the 2-piece tunic and skirt sets, and I loved them because they were just easy peasy, throw on and go. You could layer them, you could wear them as is, and they're just absolutely wonderful. She called me. She said there was a lady at ladies' conference that has 3-piece micropleat sets. I said, you've got to be kidding me. So she said, yeah, I got the lady's number because I knew you would want to call her and buy one. So I called the lady up and I said, look, my sister told me about your 3-piece micropleat sets and I want to order one, and then maybe in a few weeks possibly get another one. Because I had 3 little boys we had to feed, and so things were a little tight back then, a little more so than now.
Yeah.
And
we actually were so poor that we boys struggled to pay attention. So,
yeah, absolutely.
you can understand that was probably a good excuse that we utilized, but yeah. So that, now you saying that was in 1998?
1998. That was in fall of 98. And so I called this lady and speak to her, and she says, I said, I would like to order one of those sets. And she's like, sure. And I said, in a couple weeks, I would like to get another one. And she says, well, my husband owns the furniture store. It was in Tupelo, and a warehouse here. And I have several boxes of these things, and he wants them out of his warehouse. And I was like, oh my. She says, yeah, so I'm not sure if I'll have them around in a few weeks. I'm going to try to get rid of them. So a light bulb went off in my head, and I thought, So I hung up with her, got on the phone quickly, and called my dad, my dad was a major entrepreneur. He started all kinds of businesses over the years, so I kind of got the entrepreneur spirit from my dad. So I call him up and I tell him, I said, Dad, there's this lady with all these, and I explained to him what it was, and he starts telling me the jargon. He's like, ask her to find out if she has dead stock, give you a rundown of what she got, what she has, not what she got, but what she has, and let's see how much she wants for it. He said, I'll loan you the money to buy it, and then you can start your own. I'm like, that's exactly what I was hoping for. So Daddy tells me all the things to ask her. I call her back, and she says, well, I have X amount of boxes, don't recall, and you can buy them all. I'll sell them to you for $3,000. So I called my dad back. He said, okay, I'll send you the money. So I got this brilliant idea. This lady, she wasn't even an apostolic lady. She was just, I'm not sure how she found out about Ladies Conference, but she had come to Mississippi UPC Ladies Conference. And so I thought, that's a great idea. I think I'm going to see if I can't set myself up. And the crazy thing is when I drove to Tupelo and drove back home with all those boxes and started going through them, 50% of them were pants. And I about fell out because, I wasn't in the market to sell ladies' pants. I was strictly wanting to sell skirts and dresses and that sort of thing. So it was a little bit of let down. But wound up working in the mortgage company, and a lot of the mortgage women bought them off of me. So it worked out okay. But that was in the fall of 1998, and then March of 1999 was my first ladies conference at the Texas District Ladies Conference in Lufkin, and that's kind of where it all began. And within just X amount of weeks, I paid my dad back for the full amount because we got there, and I was just thrilled because there was such a good response from those ladies. It was exciting.
If I remember right, now I was little, but if I remember right, you only had the one style of or you had multiple colors, but you had the 2-piece and the 3-piece.
That was it. That was all. I started with the 2-piece top and skirt and the 3-piece microplate. We got there, and it was hilarious because I went to Walmart and bought these little racks. They're supposed to be garment racks. We in the old campground.
Wasn't it the little super cheap?
They were. They were like
they kept
10
falling
or $15
apart.
No, we got up on the platform. We had to carry it was at the old Tabernacle, and they still had the platform in the old Tabernacle, whereas TBC is now. And we had to carry all the racks up there, set them up, and then we carried all the clothes on top of there. The ladies would be shopping, and the racks would just start tumbling. And clothes would go everywhere. It was a nightmare. In fact,
real high class setup there.
It was incredible, very impressive. But this was a new adventure, and I'm not kidding you. I could literally write a book on all of the crazy stories of all the shows. We did ladies conference, camp meetings, general conference. We traveled, and in 2000, my mom moved from Arizona and started traveling with me. And I'm not kidding you. We had some of the wildest stories. Wheels coming off of trailers, tires catching on fire, just crazy stories.
Well, go back real quick though. We can't forget about Professor Plum.
What?
And your original cargo carrier.
Yes. Well, that was we traveled in my van. And my brother-in-law called it our righteous ride. It was a plum-colored Town and Country with little tiny gold stripes. We were high class. It was a pretty sharp van, actually, for that time.
Yeah, and that's what we boys were, the mules that loaded up all of those bins. And there would be bins. We actually would take the seats out of the back of the van to load up all of the...
And there were, at the first show that we did there in Texas, though, I don't even think we had that van yet. We had the old Caravan, a blue Dodge Caravan, and we had taken the seats out and just had clothes stacked to the ceiling with the racks and boxes. It was an adventure. It really was. But, I look back and it's really fun times. I mean, at the time you're going through it, you're like, oh my word, what have we done? But story after story, I literally could write a book on all the things that happened over the years. It was
we
cool.
won't talk about Macon either.
Oh
no, we won't. We'll leave that alone.
No.
That's a little Easter egg.
No, we won't talk about it. Do you want me to tell about that story?
No, we'll hold off. And if you're curious, just come up. You can ask her, and she can tell you.
That's right.
We'll bury that memory for a little while.
Yeah.
But that was kind of the beginnings. That was 1998, and then into 99. Mm-hmm. And then I actually remember One of the moments that kind of started things moving too is, I believe you started kind of supplying clothing for choirs and.
Oh yes, it really dominoed. Of course, we lived here locally in Mississippi, right 30 minutes from the Jackson College of Ministries, JCM, which we loved. And I started selling. First, we started with the 2-piece, and then went to 3-piece, and then several years later, we went into if you probably remember the fabric called Slinky. And Chico still has some of those pieces available. Plug for Chico's, right? But it was that really travel wear fabric. So went from micropleats to travel. And then also within a couple of years, we were selling Spencer Alexis. Do you remember Spencer Alexis?
I do. They were the fancy clothes. That's what I call them, the
Yes.
fancy clothes.
They were super fancy.
So you started supplying for JCM and their choir.
Yeah, we did some for IBC. I can't remember. It's been too long, but we provided church choirs, college choirs. I did a lot of stuff. It was fun.
Yeah, that kind of blossomed into, then so you had the micro pleats, and that was kind of your signature collection for a while as classy collections. And then you moved into some Spencer Alexis. So you went really high end.
Yeah, we did. It was a huge jump. Huge. I mean, like we're talking about $30 a set and $45 a set for the 3-piece, and then Spencer Alexis typically we're running $119 a set to $199 a set, which we were still really our prices were still undercutting Dillard's, and that hanging on the rack they were sometimes over $200. So it was really cool. It was a lot of fun.
Oh yeah. So that happened through the early 2000s, kind of into when did you kind of branch out into really starting to step out into other brands and other designs?
Well, we did micropleats and Spencer Alexis for several years, and pretty much exclusively for probably 3 or 4 years. And then I started saying, hey, we need some more stuff. I even flew to New York, went to some of the manufacturers there in New York and bought some things from them, because there was a gap in the market, because you had the lower end and then we had the higher end. So I was looking for some dresses and garments in between the price points there. And so I was on a mission. So I went to California, I went to New York, I went all over hunting for modest clothes, which is, really hard to find in the market.
Yeah, kind of break that down for us though, because if we step back, of course, our modern day where we are now, there's quite a number of people, and it's a whole lot easier to find that. But back in the late 90s, early 2000s,
it was
for you.
Yeah.
So let's step out of Classic Collections ADBs for a second, and as a pastor's wife, for you to try and find clothes just for yourself, what was that process like?
Well, you had some of the finer stores that had longer skirts, and you had some that had jackets. So back then, jackets were a big deal in the early 2000s, even into the late 2000s. So you really, for a Pentecostal lady, you had to wear separates. There weren't a lot of dresses available. The 70s did have a lot of dresses, and that was when the maxi dress became the big deal. Of course, things evolve, and the reason fashions evolve so much, and you notice that things come back around because they're trying to sell more clothes. So in the marketplace, they're changing the styles yearly, bi-yearly, every few years there's a new trend. Sometimes it's every year there's a brand new trend. And it can be colors, it can be styles, and that's just to keep the market hopping and popping and people buying, because you want the latest and greatest that's in the market. So for a Pentecostal lady, we had to be really creative and find things that worked, like, separates, and that was the thing for a while, with separates.
So you then step into this and say, hey, how can I provide a quality piece for an apostolic lady, for somebody looking for modest clothing? How do I provide this at at a price point that is more affordable? So that's kind of why you began your search, was to look all around.
Well,
try to find
because
that?
I had the lesser price points, and then I had the higher price points. So I was looking to fill that gap. So it was a journey, and a fun journey, but a lot of work and a lot of travel and a lot of thought put into it. The bottom line is I love clothes. I feel like a lady can express herself, the way she dresses, the way she looks, the way she fixes her hair. It tells a story about her. My husband used to get so tickled when we were young and newly married. He would say, "We're going to run up to Kmart," and I have to run to the bathroom, straighten my hair, make sure I had the right shoes, and he just got the biggest kick out of that. And I'm like, well, that's just what you do. You just look good when you walk out the door. He just thought that was hilarious. But over the years, he's expressed to me how much he appreciated the fact that I wanted to try to make myself look nice before I walk out into the public. So, but I feel like that's a necessary for women to present themselves well. Because sometimes we forget, women that don't look like us or dress like us, they spend a lot of money doing a lot of things, going to this place and getting this done and that done. And we don't do that. Yeah, we take care of ourselves and get manicures and pedicures, that kind of stuff. But as far as I feel like a woman that's Holy Ghost filled should look her best at all times. Now, if you're going out running or exercising, of course, you're in an athletic skirt and a shirt and tennies. That's different. But just on a daily basis, you want to walk out the door and look your best. Doesn't mean you got to be dressed in dressy clothes, but you look nice. You're put together. So that's a passion for me. And along with that passion comes finding clothes for people, women, to wear that they look good, feel good. It feels comfortable on the body, looks nice, put together without being fussy, So it's something that drives me. I think about it a lot. So it's a part of my fiber.
Well, we're definitely, as men, we're thankful for that. Also thankful we don't have to do that as much. So God bless y'all.
Yeah, you guys are a little bit blessed. I mean, it's a little bit
We can
unfair.
wear the same suit, different tie, three
It's
services in a row, and
true.
most people won't
It's
remember.
very true.
But somebody will remember. And if we can all agree that, ladies, y'all really don't dress as much for us as much as you do for other ladies, because other ladies are who's really gonna notice it.
Because the men don't really notice.
Yeah, but Stacy's problem, obviously, my wife is she'll find a new dress or find some kind of new clothing, but because I did work in ZDBs for a number of years through school and through college,
Yes.
so she can't play that game. A lot of others.
Because you have a little bit of more.
I do
of
have an eye. I'm not a great eye.
Notice it a little more.
But I
don't
do
you?
I do tend to notice.
Yeah.
So, but yes, so obviously that was something that was a passion of yours, was to create, a clothing line and all that kind of stuff that would would allow ladies to find something that they could be able to feel comfortable in, look good in, and be modest in,
Right.
which has obviously been a driving force for you. And so that begins to do, but things took a little bit of a turn.
They did.
In the early 2000s, mid 2000s, that kind of shifted you, not completely off the trajectory you were. Still classy collections, still traveling a lot. Kind of walk us through those first few years of the 2000s.
Well, in 2000 to 2007, my mom and I traveled and we did 12, 16 shows a year, which, if you're thinking about it, doesn't sound like a lot, but I'm telling you, it was a lot.
It's at least once a month.
Oh yeah, but the crazy thing is, if you look at schedules of ladies conferences, they're usually pretty intensified through March, April, sometimes into May, and then camp meetings and camps start into June and July. So, and then in the fall there are other conferences, and then of course general conferences, one I did for more than 20 years and love, because those ladies are my heart. But we did tons of shows, and so Mom and I would pack up, and it was funny because we started out with minivan, then went to Nissan Xterra, and then we had this little single
Dinky trailer.
axle trailer that was a nightmare.
So just to give you a picture of it, it had a pointed front, and it was supposed to be quote unquote more aerodynamic.
Yeah.
It was dinky.
It was really dinky.
And we were pulling it with a tiny little Xterra SUV, which is like
Little,
forerunner to the Forerunner.
Yeah,
So it was this
little tiny.
little thing, and Yeah, we have a whole story. We won't get into that today, but we have a
Yeah.
whole story about having an accident with the
coming
guys.
home from Phoenix. My boys and my husband coming home from Phoenix for General Conference in, I believe, 2003, if I remember correctly, had an accident.
And that trailer got destroyed, and we almost got destroyed,
Yes.
but for the grace of God, thank God He
Yes.
kept His hands on us. We slid
Thank
down
the
and back.
Lord.
Again, we won't get into the whole story,
It was a
but
miracle that you guys didn't get badly hurt.
it
Really.
was,
It
truly.
really is.
Yeah, if
God
you'd
had
seen
his
the
hand.
pictures and all that. But we got an actual real trailer then. Praise God. I still
Yes.
remember that trailer was called Wells Cargo.
Yeah, yeah.
I thought about that the other
It was
day.
a tandem axle, which
Yeah.
was
Uncle Doyle brought it to us.
Yes, it was
Thank
a
God for
tandem
him.
axle trailer, which was the best move we ever made. So Mom and I traveled from 2000. She came from Phoenix in 2000. We traveled until 2007. And in the midst of all of this traveling, we opened up a home decor store. Don't know what we were doing, but we did. Daddy loaned me the money to open a home decor store in 2003. We did that from 2003 up into 2008 when we actually, well, this is interesting. We opened the home decor store, and I still had a trailer with clothes in it. So just seasonally, I would travel and I would buy more clothes and replenish, go out on these sales. And the boys ran the store, the home decor store. It was about 6,000 square feet. We had great home decor. Was making zero money, barely making ends meet. And my dad loaned us the money, and his instructions were, do not take money out of this business. You guys are going to work for nothing. And I was like, okay. And we did it. Now, after a while, when we did make a little tiny bit of profit here and there, I would give the boys money to go to youth events, and we go to youth conferences. And of course, I would drive my truck and trailer cross country. We did it many times, and the boys complained because after at youth events they were helping me load a trailer. Mom, we want to go to the youth events. And I'm like, okay, buddies, you came here because Mom was selling clothes so you could come. And they just griped and complained, but they did it with a cheerful heart.
Very, very cheerful. But we were grateful ultimately that we got to go to so many conferences. We were just not grateful to miss the lock-ins, at least the first half of it.
Yeah, you guys missed
because
a
we
few.
were loading
Yeah,
up. But
'cause you're working
we wouldn't have even been able
so
to get to
hard.
there without that. Yeah,
That's right.
I kind of wondered that sometimes. Is like, Lord, why did you give the owner of a clothing store 3 boys? Because you
Me
could have
too.
dressed all the little girls in fine clothing. But we actually, I think if I take a step back and really look at it, it ends up being that we were the necessary mules to
That's
move
right.
all of your gear. How
but-
many pallets of pottery did we unload?
Oh my
And
goodness.
massive
Wow.
trucks of
Get
boxes
trucks
and
of pottery from Mexico would be, I don't
in
know,
the home
was a
decor store,
lot.
that
We had
Mississippi
huge-
Mill store in Canton, Mississippi.
Yeah.
We had that for how many
5 years. Well, we started in 2003 and closed it in 2008.
Well, that's when you moved
the mall.
to the North Park Mall and
Yeah,
in
and we
Ridgeland.
weren't making any money. I mean, I say not making any money. We just weren't making a lot of money. It was minuscule compared to.
Oh, but everybody wants to own a business.
Yeah, it was
And
a
y'all
lot
are
of
rich business owners.
That's right. We worked our legs off. My boys were troopers. They mumbled and grumbled along the way. Yes, indeed. But you know what? It was a great experience for them. They probably don't want to hear this, but it really was, because all 3 of them learned to work really, really hard. We actually took on a crazy project. That building we got for a steal. We rented it, leased it for 5 years, but when we walked in the door, it took 6 weeks to clean the whole building out. We had 2 huge dumpsters, and
36
yards.
feet long.
Yeah, was it yards?
Maybe in yards, yeah.
It was a lot.
It was just the construction dumpsters, 2 massive construction dumpsters, full to overflowing.
It was
and we
nuts.
were just hauling trash out there. Now,
Oh.
in some respects, it was fun because we got to just like go out there and chunk a bunch of stuff. So
And
that
then
was fun.
trample on it.
But I have very vivid memories also of that red floor. We ended up painting the floor red.
Yeah, we did. It was like a barn red. It was like a garage paint. And of course, we didn't really do it right. And so it kind of started to peel over time. Anyway, so
It was appealing.
it was appealing. Yeah, it was incredible. But you know what? It really taught it not just me, but it taught my boys a lot about business and endurance and perseverance. And that Mom blessed me with that. Thank God for endurance, because it was a lot of work. But towards the end of our tenure there, I was asking, Lord, please, Lord, I remember a pastor's wife saying to me, why are you staying there if you're not really breaking even or making any money? And I was thinking the same thing. Why are we doing this? Well, the really cool thing, a turn of events happened. I guess it was 2007.
It's leading up to Thanksgiving, I believe.
Yeah, well, it was October because Canton Flea Market was in town. And the leasing manager from North Park Mall in Jackson, Ridgeland, Mississippi, she actually came in our store while the flea market was in our town. And she was very impressed. She loved our store. Well, I had taken a break and went down to the flea market. So she gave the card to one of my boys or my husband, I don't remember, and said, have your wife call me. I really would love to have her store in our mall. So I come back from flea market, and honestly, I had been praying, Lord, you've got to give me direction, because I just can't keep going like this if we're not making any money. And the girl that worked for me, she and I had been actually scouting locations and checking on prices, and prices of rental was leasing retail space even back then was unbelievable. It still is now. It's gone even higher. But so retail space was ridiculous. So I just don't know what to do. I don't know how to go. I've never been in this position. I don't know what avenue to go. So when she came in the store and left that card, I called her. Within a couple of days, maybe just even the next day, I'm not even sure. And she made an appointment for me and said, I want you to come. I want to meet you, and I'd love, for you to check out the mall. Well, we did that. I went up there. In fact, I think my daughter-in-law went with me, Deanne, and we talked to her, and she showed us this little tiny coffee shop. It was closed down. It was on the top center of the mall. This was fall of 2007. So we went over there and looked at it. Yeah, because Gregory and Deanne had just got married in 2007. And she and I went over and looked at it, and it was $3,000 because it was holiday time. We were going to be renting it for 600 square feet for $3,000. And that was more than what we paid for 6,000 square feet in Canton, way more. But it was holiday time, so the prices go up for holiday. So I said, you know what? I had been talking to the Lord and asking the Lord to give me direction, and He did. He opened that door, and she told me, here, this is the price. We can, I said, well, I'm going to give it a try. She was wanting me to do a permanent store, and I said, well, let's give it a try. Let's see how this goes. We did incredible. But this is how it worked. It was a teeny tiny little 600 square feet.